to lines and to follow our event on Mission Soil launching in Finland. And our next speaker is Anna. Anna, and you will represent us, the Mission Soil Deal for Europe. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Liisa. Thank you, Liisa. Welcome everyone online and in the room again. I'm very, very pleased to be in this position of introducing the Mission Soil Deal for Europe to you, as I had the pleasure to be involved in the mission from its inception, first as a member of the advisory commission to the mission, and then now as a member of the mission itself. A lot of the importance of soils to European economy and society and Finnish economy and society has already been discussed by the previous presentations, so I'll try not to cover too much of the same ground. But I think it is important to repeat that the missions represent something new in the effort to make research and innovation, European research and innovation, truly impactful by the European Commission. So the 5 missions really depend on, or their success really depends on, and their ambition is immediately and intimately linked with stakeholder engagement and their societal uptake. Without societal support, the missions cannot succeed. And that's why that's something that is very important to keep in mind as we go through the rest of the day. And the reasons for having a specific mission on soil have also, again, been already discussed by my colleagues, so I will not go through too much detail here. But we do like to say within the mission for soil that basically this is the mission that supports all the other missions. That the success of all the other missions is intimately dependent on the success of the mission soil, because of soil's underpinning function as a vital infrastructure for terrestrial life. Everything else, the success of cities, the health of societies, and the health of our waters is really linked with the health of the soils. And so it is very important that this mission is embraced by a wide variety of stakeholders within Finland and elsewhere, and that we make a difference to how things are right now. As we have a very high level of soil threat, 60 to 70% of soils in Europe are considered to be unhealthy, and the situation is not improving. And just some of the more kind of scary statistics, one of the key problems for soils in Europe are industrial pollution and contamination. And it's really important to keep in mind when we are discussing soils that we're not only talking agriculture, we are talking about soils in the urban environment, we're talking about soils in forestry, and soils under conservation and conservation environmental management. So all of these contexts pose their particular challenges, and they need to improve in particular ways. And the relationship between changes in these environments and the relationship and the changes in the quality of water and health is something that is very apparent. And again, the previous presentations have already given a flavor of this, and I think again it bears repeating that the mission for the Mission Soil Deal for Europe is very much linked with other efforts at making soils the foundation of the European economy and society going forward. So we had the discussion of the soil health law and the EU soil strategy by Hannah. This is supported by the EU Soil Observatory, which is an organization I'm also involved with in an advisory capacity. And there, this question of soil monitoring and data collection is extremely important. So both on a national and a European level, soil monitoring is something that has not been supported sufficiently, that has not been supported as much as monitoring of other health of other natural resources. And now we are seeing this very important push towards increasing the monitoring of the state of soils, understanding what we have and how things are changing is really crucial. We will not be able to tell if we're doing any better unless we have the soil monitoring. So that's really important that the EU Soil Observatory is really gathering speed now. Within these three puzzle pieces, the EU mission is primarily a research and innovation instrument. We're still talking about funding for research and innovation. But as I said, the success of this research and innovation is dependent on and will be measured by its success in societal engagement. This is also the link with the mission and the Green Deal. Again, because Hannah covered this, I think I'll just skip this slide and really focus on the mission goals and specific objectives. So the success of the mission is going to be primarily achieved by, or the engine for the mission is this ambition of funding and creating 100 living labs and lighthouses. And in the later part of today, I will give a specific presentation on what living labs and lighthouses are. But for me as a social scientist, it is very important that the mission has taken this approach towards its research and innovation, that it is recognizing that achieving the objectives of increasing soil health depends on stakeholders taking this up and making a difference, and that living labs are a pathway for making that happen. Living labs as being these sites where societal innovation and research and innovation happen hand in hand. And the objective of these 100 living labs is to link with these specific mission goals, the reduction of desertification, conservation of organic carbon stocks, the stopping of sealing and reuse of urban soils. Again, Hannah mentioned this, stopping land take, so no more new land being taken under urban development, but rather the reuse or utilization of existing brown sites, reducing soil pollution and enhancing restoration, the prevention of erosion, something that's very close to Lisa's heart, improving of soil structure and enhancement of soil biodiversity, which I think is a very important objective and a very tough one in a way because of the monitoring challenges that soil biodiversity presents. Reducing EU's global footprint on soils. This is a very important objective which really takes the understanding of EU's responsibility for soils as not being limited to its borders, but also implicating the relationship that the EU has with other countries from which it imports natural resources or products where land may be under exploitation due to the production of these products. So keeping that soil footprint in mind is, I think, really crucial. And then our 8th objective, improving soil literacy in society. Soil scientists like to say that soil is something of a Cinderella subject and nobody ever looks under their feet and everybody thinks that soil is dirt and all of these phrases. And to a certain extent, it's certainly true. So improving soil literacy and making soil quality and soil health a sort of a topic of everyday conversation in the same way as climate change or improving water quality is one of the objectives of the mission that I think is extremely important. How is this going to be achieved? So we have these 4 elements or 4 building blocks. So as I said, the mission is primarily a research and innovation program, which means that creating new knowledge, creating new research is still a major part of that. But it's the creating of this new knowledge is linked with its embeddedness and application within this context of living labs and lighthouses. So this relationship between new knowledge and its application and testing and its enhancement in real world context is very important, and it connects this building block 1 and building block 2 very closely. With that, the building block of soil health monitoring, including the European Soil Observatory, and then the communication training and advice So we have these 4 elements, but really I do agree with the illustration of it as a self-reinforcing cycle. They all really link together, and they have to link together. All of these elements have to be interlinked for the mission to work. And this means that the mission is not just something that happens at research institutes, it's not just driven by researchers, but rather is implemented by land managers, by regions, by businesses, policymakers, citizens, and international partners all together. So anything that we can do to enhance this collaboration beyond the research and innovation is very important to us as mission board members, and something that we're very keen to promote and strengthen. So please reach us about that if you would like to be involved. Now we have the slide on the living labs, but I think again I will skip this because I have a separate presentation on that, and I will just go straight to the soil literacy, communication, and engagement. So the mission is very dedicated to increasing soil literacy and increasing societal engagement with the topic of soils. There is a specific funding program dedicated to this that also very strongly incorporates arts and the humanities. So if you are from these fields, please look at the funding instruments that are available for that. If you are from a civil society organization or from a stakeholder organization and you would like to enhance the knowledge of your network on soils, then the EU mission already has a range of resources that are available on the website that you can download and utilize, and we really encourage you to do that. The timeline for the mission is ongoing, and we're now at stage 3. So we're looking at these upcoming funding opportunities in the work program 2023, the publication of which is imminent, I think within the next 2 weeks, hopefully, definitely by the end of the year. And this is where we will see the first funding call for the living labs as well, which is something I'll talk about in the next presentation. And this is just a list of useful links that I encourage you to look at, browse, and utilize, that you can use to make others enchanted and interested with soils, just as we are here in this room. Thank you. Any questions?
So, thank you indeed. So, questions, please?
Let's make soils great again.
Again. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And now the next presentation is from Mikko Peltonen, Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. And please, Mikko, you are on land there, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you see me.
We see you very well.
Okay, thank you so much. I really wanted to be there today, but unfortunately I got caught by flu, and I'm afraid that this might be a COVID infection. Very much feels like it, like I had it earlier in the summer. So, but I tried my best to have this presentation here. Is somebody pressing the button for me there? Because yes. I guess I can. Yes, thank you very much. So we are talking about Soil Deal for Europe, the mission. And my name is Mikko Peltonen. I come from the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, and you have already seen my name on the previous presentation. So I'm involved in this the national network from the administration side. I'm a member of the working group for soil mission. So that's why I was asked to talk to you today. So when we are talking about this mission, as we have heard, the goal is to establish 100 living labs and lighthouses to lead the transition towards the healthy soils, and by 2030. So now, thus far about the missions, there has been a lot of talk and conceptualization of the mission, what that could be and what that should be. And now I guess we have come to the point when we stop talking the talk and we must start walking the walk. So what do we actually want to do, and how do we actually in practice make the goals happen? How to get the soil mission goals and best practices for everyday use for all those stakeholders who are managing soils or whose activities affect soil somehow. And as we know, we have a lot of things going on at the moment already related to soils. We have lots of research and innovation activities. We have all kinds of advice for farmers, managing how to manage the soils in a correct, smart way. So we don't have to start from zero. We have a lot of activities going on. We have to also bear in mind that this is not only about agricultural soils and forest soils. Also, the soils in urban areas are included, and in business areas, industrial areas. So that is something that, to my knowledge, might be something that we have to kind of think more thoroughly. What are the concrete actions in that sector of the soil deal? So as we have already heard, now this soil mission offers us some practical tools to go forward, and funding research and innovation program is one of those, and that's how we can this is something that we need to think carefully how we can make the best of it. And as has been pointed out by the Commission texts, the social sciences are very important part of this. This is not only life sciences, because we are trying to make a change in the society, so we need to also include the social science aspects in all the research and innovation activities. So when we talking about the network of 100 living labs and lighthouses, I would stress, how I understand them, the co-creation is one of the key concepts in these. We need to find ways to connect different stakeholders to co-create and test and demonstrate good solutions, how we can help the soils become more healthy. Of course, the monitoring is also very important, and there's already many things that we can utilize in that sector also. And then a big separate question is how to raise general awareness on the importance of soils, because we need to engage also the ordinary citizens to these activities. Next slide, please. So here in this slide, we see that we have a lot of different stakeholders and players on the playground, and we have already seen presentations on the what kind of players we have in the administration and research funding side in EU and national level. But I would like to stress, when we are now going forward to the more to the implementation stage, the right hand column is on. It is really important. Other actors and stakeholders who are actually doing the concrete things related to soils. And this is something that we are ready to start building on. And I would say that the ministry administration and also our colleagues in like funding agencies like the Academy of Finland, we are there to enable activities and support those stakeholders who are actually doing the hard work, and we are doing our best to create favorable conditions for success, national success in this mission. So I would once more stress that we need to bring all the relevant stakeholders together, and all good ideas are mostly welcome to find out how to make the best of this mission in Finland. And I guess that was the message in the last slide there, because we don't have the correct answers to all the questions that we have at the moment. So I guess it's always good to notice that all the wisdom is not necessarily living in the ministries. You all stakeholders out there are really important, and we at the ministry and administration we want to collaborate and do this together with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikko, very much. It was a very clear presentation. And now we have time to discuss. And I really hope that now we can share ideas. And please raise your hand online or here. I don't know if there is any hand raised. No, just chat. But here, please. Now we do have time. The agenda.
I think that question of how we can engage further societal stakeholders with the mission is really the key one. And as the ambassadors of the mission, we would really like to hear what you think about that and how we could make that happen. What are the existing networks that we could engage with, whom we could bring this kind of a presentation to, this kind of very simple initial outreach. But we would really welcome your advice.
And if you think now it's also forestry soils and urban soils, not just agricultural soils, because I have a feeling that it has been focused more on agricultural soils, but now it's really all soil types or soils. And so.
I do find it fascinating that it has been acknowledged that it's also a health question as well.
Yes. Can you come here? Because I think that so people
Sure.
can.
By all means.
they can hear you better.
So yes, as I mentioned, that I'm really fascinated by the fact that the health industry has been pinpointed to be part of this global change. I'm also interested in speculating and getting to know on how will these steps be taken in the real world. I mean, what are the concrete actions and what at what time scale that will happen, especially is an intriguing question, because I mean, I do not personally believe that we do not need any more studies on this subject. We do know that climate change is real. We do know that it affects us at many levels. We do know that it's greatly affected by the political system. What I do believe is that we do not need concrete actions to be taken, and in order for all of us with a better future, and acknowledge also that business profits could also benefit greatly from this change. So, no. Yeah. That's what I had to say.
Yeah, thanks, Lumi. Yeah. And I have also in my mind the real appreciation of soil. Soil is not just soil. I said here that it really needs to be appreciated more, and the knowledge by the mission will hopefully create a better appreciation. But Elina.
Yes.
Your turn.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, it's kind of an all your views are welcome, because there's an we really like to think now how we should implement this sort of how we kind of push forward these goals. So you can think things and say, now you know who we are, so you can send us email and give your ideas. But I think one step forward perhaps is like kind of this bureau group or national hub, which was on Mikko's slides, that, or mailing list or something like that, that we can share information to relevant and interested parties. So it's so to speak, maybe this is the start, but all ideas are welcome, I guess, now. So, but yeah,
Thank you, Elina. Kai, please.
Thank you. I'm more.
Yeah, please come here and introduce yourself. We will listen to your presentation later, but now you comment here. So
Yes, I have maybe more question to you, the national focal points and authorities. This is very much a European topic that requires cooperation across the borders also, and we are here in the north with a distinct climate and ecology and also economic landscape in Finland and Sweden and maybe other Nordic countries and Baltic countries. So can you say anything about how you are discussing this mission with other countries and your partner focal points in our neighboring countries, and what kind of maybe joint approaches for the Nordic countries or Northern Europe you envision or you would like to see from the research and other stakeholders? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Kai. Very good question. Maybe can you already answer a little bit, Mikko, or are you there? Mikko doesn't hear, but maybe Elina can answer. Thank you.
yeah. Well, I'm not sure if I have an answer yet, but actually, as I said earlier, we are very lucky that we have both Anna and both Liisa here. And they are representing us also, and they, of course, their expertise in this advisory board. But I think that they are only one from the Scandinavia, for example. And I'm not sure if there is anyone from Estonia or Baltic countries. I mean, so that gives us some responsibility to also perhaps look into that, because you're absolutely right that the transnational cooperation is the key here. So also, and Anna is going to give you some more insight about the future calls, which would be kind of an help in this. But yeah, I think that we should do something about that also.
Thank you, Elina. So I think that please, Anni, yes.
I would like to add that I think also the regional operators in Finland should somehow be engaged. We do have already existing structures. We have cities, we have regions, and we should also try to engage them to work with the solution altogether.
Yes.
How would we do that? That's a very good question.
Yeah. Next time we need to have Kuntaliitto here and so. So this
ELY, yes.
And ELY, yes, precisely.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
yeah, please. Yeah, Ilkka.
Another question and an idea. I'm Ilkka Räsänen from Sitra, and I am by no means an expert in this field, but I was interested in the concepts of living lab and lighthouse, whether there are already examples of a lighthouse or living lab somewhere that could help us, at least me, to make it more concrete on what these sort of actions are besides classic research. As I understand, these lighthouses and living labs are important in this mission.
Yes, I will talk about that in my presentation.
Okay.
That was a good introduction, actually.
Yes,
to the next topic. we do have some time left, but I propose that we can use it later and we move
Yes,
on to
yes,
this
let's
living
do that.
lab hall because that was so nicely introduced by Liisa now. So let's move then there and living lab hall it is on our agenda. And first, please, Anni Leino from Academy of Finland, you will give us some general issues and understanding and knowledge about calls.
Thank you. Thank you. So, first, I wanted to introduce myself. So, I'm Anni Leino. I'm a national contact point, and I'm a science advisor at the Academy of Finland. And I'm a national contact point for two things. So, first of all, the soil mission, but then also for the Cluster 6, which is the Horizon Europe funding, providing Horizon Europe funding for food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. So I wanted to remind you today that if you're interested in acquiring and applying for funding for the soil mission, that there is a work program that is published yearly. And the work program for the 2023 is not yet published, but I will give you a kind of a sneak peek to what is going to be in there very shortly. So, and the disclaimer is that, as I said, this is not published information, so it's still a little bit confidential and it may change before it's fully approved and published. So, in the EU missions, as Anna just said, the goal of the mission is to create 100 living labs and lighthouses to lead the transition towards healthy soils. And the important thing here is that, which was also mentioned by Liisa, that this is not just the agricultural soils, it's really about all different kinds of soils. It's peatlands, it's forests, it's wetlands, it is urban soils as well. And the work program and the mission is supposed to be reducing the risks of the. It's supposed to be addressing these eight aims that Anna already introduced you to. I have marked with this star those particular core topics in the work program 2023 that will be addressing each of these different aims. So there will be 9 core topics in total. 2 of them are specifically focusing on reducing desertification. 5 of them are tackling the conserving, to try to conserve the soil organic carbon stocks. 2 of them are supposed to be reducing pollution and enhance restoration of the soil. 3 of them are supposed to be improving soil structure and enhance soil biodiversity. And then there's 1 that is trying to improve the soil literacy in society. And then I have 1 more slide for you, and this is really about the important numbers of the work program 2023. So what is the budget going to be, and how is that budget going to be allocated for these different core topics? So in total, there will be 126 million euros to be shared, and as I said, 9 core topics, including 2 topics for the living labs. So although we are very heavily focusing today on those living lab calls, it's good to remember it's only 2 of the core topics and covering 48 million euros, but there is much more in those 7 other topics as well available. So there are 3 different types of calls. So there are research and innovation actions. These are really like basic research heavy things. Then also innovation actions where the solutions that are developed already need to reach certain technology readiness levels, which are defined in the work program. And also there is one this kind of a CSA, so that's a support action for for these policies. And the total budget per each of these calls varies from 6 to 36 million euros. And there will be funding for 6 to 12 million euros per funded projects. And in total, 16 projects are expected to be funded. And it's also good to remember that since we have 5 missions in total, there are also joint calls within these missions, because some of these missions or the call topics have synergies with the different missions. So for instance, there are 2 calls, one call where both ocean and climate mission and soil are all 3 missions are joined in that one call, and then there's another call topic for I can't remember whether it was with ocean or with mission or with climate mission, but anyways, like there are joint calls as well, and it's good to remember that those are available there as well. Now I think that Anna will be talking more about the living labs and what they are really about. But I just wanted to remind you that if you have any questions regarding the work program, the call topics, or if you are interested in anything related to how to apply funding from this Horizon Europe calls, I'm the person to contact. So please email me or call me. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Before Anna will come and present more, so I have one question, because I was concerned when I saw no call for erosion control. So could it be so that it is kind of a joint call with oceans and climate, because that would make sense?
My guess would be that this is actually due to the fact that we have that work program for each of the years. So I would expect that there will be calls for reducing erosion. It was either previous years or it's in the coming years. So they simply can't fit everything into this one work program, because it's only for 1 year at a time. Like the normal cluster 6 work programs, for instance, they are always for 2 years, and there is much more money and much more calls. So I would also recommend checking what is actually in the cluster 6 work program as well, because there may be calls as well that are addressing these things as well.
Thank you. So now your turn, Anna, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Liisa. Thank you. So yes, to answer this key question, what are these living labs and lighthouses? And before I start, I would like to acknowledge my colleague, Professor Muriel. Oh my God, her surname just disappeared from my mind. Sorry, Muriel Lambrini. My apologies, from INRE, who helped me prepare this presentation, and who really is an expert on living laboratories. So this is the main difference that the SOL mission tries to achieve in its orientation towards society. That it envisages the research and innovation, a large part of the research and innovation that it is funding, not as happening in isolated ivory tower centers of research and innovation excellence like universities, but really happening on the ground with stakeholders. And this is the nature of the living lab. So the living lab concept has now perhaps a 30-year history that I won't go too much into. But the core of the living labs from the beginning is the idea that research and innovation happens in real life sites. So that it's not theoretical, but it is the cycle of application and reflection. And in the context of the soil mission, the idea of a living lab is that this is a real life site in a rural urban area in which people from various sectors and backgrounds experiment and test solutions in a co-creative manner. So the research and innovation that is being funded under the Living Lab call always has to start with this societal relevance and has to be implemented and tested and worked on in this societal context. Now, usually living labs are sort of separate singular sites. So in other contexts, living laboratories have been sort of singular sites, for example, a certain building or an area of the city. Within the SOL mission and within the funding call, the way that the living lab is envisaged is actually a collection of different sites. So in other words, if you're just a single farm, you can't apply to be a living lab. You have to make friends with other farms or other urban gardens or other polluted sites or other marshes or other forests, etc., who share a similar issue and want to research a similar problem. And together, you apply to be a living laboratory. And I have a graphic sort of to illustrate that a little bit as well. And this was, introduced, this idea of a living laboratory as a group of sites. It really was introduced to reflect the nature of soils as very diverse between different contexts, but also diverse in terms of the exposure to weather and different climatic conditions. So you always need a variety of sites in which you can compare and have a dialogue between a lot of different variables in order to observe changes. When the call is published, we will have these specific criteria for what kind of counts as a living lab or how one should present oneself when applying for funding as a living laboratory. But at the moment, I can't say very much about that because the call is not yet published, but it will be in the next few weeks, we hope. So that's the living lab. And we have this combination within the living lab of different groups of stakeholders or sort of different groups of experts. So we could have practitioners, social scientists, natural scientists, all collaborating within one living laboratory. It's this idea of bringing together different forms of knowledge in order to achieve change that is very important. There is also an element of the call which focuses on lighthouses, and here I can't really tell without looking at the call document what the difference between a lighthouse and a living lab exactly will be, and it's a bit of a discussion still. That we were having in the mission board. But the idea is that the lighthouse is an already existing center of excellence or site of excellence. So perhaps, yes, a number of farms or a network of farms or a network of forests or organization that have already an established history of positive change in terms of soil health or other soil improvement related objectives, and that can spread this wisdom, that can train others, that can form a peer group. So the lighthouse is this idea that it illuminates, it already is excellent and it can teach others as well as continue research, but it's more this engagement oriented. So these principles of co-creation with users in the real life context, we can see that these are the building blocks of a living laboratory. These are the principles that have to be present. And the values of increasing knowledge, enhancing business and enhancing societal benefits, they are the values that the living lab should encompass. And for those who would like to see what this may look like in practice, the Living Lab model has worked very successfully amongst our colleagues in Canada in the Living Laboratories Initiative, and these are land-centered living laboratories that have focused on farmers' needs that are built through broad and diverse partnerships and that have been testing innovation and developing innovation in real life contexts. So if you look up this initiative to have a look at what land-based living laboratories can look like and can operate like, I think they offer very good inspiring examples and sort of are an example of best practice in terms of this living lab structure. And this is just a little bit more detail about that innovation or this network, which has been going on for a number of years now. There are now between 75 and 85 participants, 32 living labs, and they have been doing a number of, they have been creating innovation in a number of relevant areas such as crop rotation, creation of new wetlands, testing of new fertilizers, etc. So we can look to that initiative sort of for inspiration and for good examples of good practice. So in short, the assets that build the living lab are a common principle that is agreed by the scientists, policymakers, producers, stakeholders that come together in this living lab. That the living lab presents a new way of experimenting, a new way of producing knowledge that brings together the societal innovation and research innovation. It can create new research questions. I think that's really important, that living laboratories are not a closed sort of unit, but they are always ongoing. There's always ongoing learning. So they should be generating new research questions for further work, and so creating new objects for research. So I think they are a really important and interesting instrument. Now, what is this going to look like in the forthcoming call? This is some information. Again, I should have your sticker, but this is Annie, but this is all based on our preliminary information. But we think that funding will be available for 4 to 5 living lab projects within the coming call. Obviously, these projects should respect the usual regulations of Horizon funding, so they should include at least 3 EU countries, and every project should include a cluster of sites as a living laboratory. Each project should investigate a common theme, so some of these themes Annie has identified in her presentation, which gives us a really good insight. And these projects, because we are still, these are still research and innovation projects, so the project still needs to be led by a research and innovation institutions consortium, but it has to involve in a very significant way these stakeholders who actually form the living laboratories. And something that was very encouraging for me from the information that we received as the mission board members is that the living lab stakeholders will be paid in some way, will be compensated for participating. And I think that's very important, and because it often forms a really structural barrier for participation by landowners and other professionals when they are not being remunerated for their time. So it will be possible, and perhaps it will be obligatory to incorporate payment for time into these calls. So if you're writing one, please keep it in mind. So this is just my rough graphic trying to explain what a call, project structure could look like. So I'm imagining here that this imagined consortium is formed of 3 European countries. Each European country has its living labs, clusters, and they share some similarity, right? They have a similar soil type, or they have a similar practice, something that enables their communication and their peer-to-peer learning and their learning cycle. These are then connected, and the communication between them is enabled by the research and innovation institution in a given country. And together, these research and innovation institutions and the living laboratories form a consortium which together is united by a shared research theme, such as how to improve carbon sequestration in European soils, or how to address the challenge of pollution from fertilizer use, or something. It has this shared theme. But the learning happens at many different levels. It happens between research and innovation institutions, it happens between the living labs, and within the whole project. So I imagine that in the writing of them, again, we haven't seen the exact program, but in the writing of these projects, I imagine that having this multi-scale learning and explaining exactly how this is happening is going to be important. So that's what I can say for now. Thank you, and questions, please.
Thank you. So, please.
Also, especially for our members online, I hope that there may be some representatives already there of people who are thinking about applying as a living lab, or who want to collaborate with stakeholders who may be a living lab sort of candidate. If you have questions that we can help answer at this stage, this is why we're here. And also, if you're not ready with questions now, but you'd like more information, then please send me an email later. Me and Annie. There's a hand raised up from. Okay, can I take a question from here, or?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Well, you can just say that you have Roger can speak.
Okay. Roger, can you speak? Hey.
Yes. Hi there. I can speak. Hi. Yeah, I just had a question, which is the kind of idea of the living lab. I mean, I've heard about it a lot, and I think I've even written it into a funding application, but actually know very little about the kind of practicalities of how they work. And I just wondered if you spoke a little bit to this, but are there any examples out there that you could direct us to see kind of what a living lab is in real life, and how it's worked kind of in a project, just to have a better idea of how, you know, people interested in applying for some of this funding might envision it, for those who haven't sort of worked with it before as an entity.
Yeah, thanks for this question, Roger. I think that the best resource is the European Living Lab Initiative. So this is a network of living laboratories within the European Union that are formed from within many different contexts, from health to smart cities, a number of different areas of research and innovation. And they have been involved in different research funding as well. So I would go to their website and have a look at their examples, really, as well as the ones from Canada that I mentioned in the presentation. And it really is, I mean, it is a broad concept still. The centrality of the collaboration between a kind of a research institution and a stakeholder group, that's what makes the living lab a living lab. But then it is applied in action in different ways in different contexts. And we're not sure until we actually see the text of the call exactly what the criteria are for a living laboratory under the SOIL mission. But the European Living Labs Initiative really provides a good range of resources to have a look at and be inspired by.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for a good presentation. This was very helpful to make, for example, me understand what is meant when we talk about living labs and lighthouses. What comes to different kind of examples, what comes to my mind is Kvidiakord, Baltic Sea Action Group place in where there's a very progressive modern farm, and they have have had lots of activities related to soil. So I have been wondering if, I mean, this might be something that could be classified or called a living lab or even a lighthouse. Or you probably, I don't know if you know the place and what they have been doing there. I'm sure that many of the audience knows the place, but I would kind of like, this is just an example. I don't want to kind of like kind of point out only one specific place, but this is very famous in Finland. So I think this might be some kind of a benchmarking for what a living lab or lighthouse might mean in soil business.
Great, thank you very much for sharing that, Nico. Would you be able to put the name of that farm into the chat so that people can look it up?
Sure.
I assume we have a chat function here.
Yeah. And I think that we need to go and visit that is famous farm in Finland. So yeah. So and I have been thinking the same as Mikko, that we could even think that with that Kuitia farm or Kuitia farm being kind of lighthouse, maybe? I don't know. Maybe lighthouse. There are, yeah. So
that would be great.
Yeah, we need to go there.
Sorry, can I have a comment?
So
yes, of course.
So
hey, yeah, this is
please.
This is Leila Hykkäset from Finnish Meteorological Institute, and we are part of this carbon action initiative. And I think that here, as you just described, the Kvidia could be a lighthouse, and then all the farms that we have, like in this platform, there are actually 100 of them, but at least 20 of those could be the living labs, because those are like advanced carbon action sites where we do intensive studies, and we have even added those in our field observatory system already. So I think this is a great example of the Finnish living lab and lighthouse systems in agriculture.
Yes,
I can post the links to the chat, or there is already this Kvidia site. Yeah, but there is also this field observatory, which we illustrate all the studies and collected data from these actually living labs.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it also reminds me that I wanted to say for those who may be thinking about applying to this call, that exactly if there is an already formed network, for example, that is united, it's like a peer-to-peer learning group amongst the different foresters or different farmers, or maybe it's a network of organic farms or some other pre-existing network of land sites that could be sort of rebranded as a living lab cluster. I think that would be a very useful starting point, so that I would really encourage those managers of these kinds of networks to think about themselves as living laboratories, or to think how they could turn their existing network into a living laboratory through this funding call. And this is really the objective, to take these existing groups and push them forward, and to enhance their research and innovation, and to enhance their learning and enhance their impact. So yes, thank you very much for reminding me to say that.
I could also add that we are also collaborating with the Swedish partners to kind of start the similar network in Sweden.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you very much raising up these carbon farmers, Laia. So we are familiar with that, and we have also with Sitra we have funded that, and this is really promising and very good example about.
So shall we hear from the?
Yeah, and I think this is the guy from the Baltic Action Group and also the Urban Action Platform. So you will reflect now what we have discussed and we have learned. And please, the floor is yours, guy.
Yes, thank you, Liisa, and thank you for the invitation. And how convenient that you turned the discussion and attention to carbon action and our network of farms. Yes, my name is Kai Graham from the Baltic Sea Action Group, Finnish foundation that has since 2008 promoted cooperation for the Baltic Sea, and now we're very much in addition to working in maritime issues and marine nature protection, we are very much involved in accelerating the food system transition. My title that was given to me is very ambitious and maybe loaded with some expectations on us also, how to succeed in the call. I will not give you advice on how to succeed in the call. I'll just present what we have from the Carbon Action Platform. These can be the elements that all, not only agricultural projects, but all other projects can apply in this Living Lab call. But yes, we will now keep discussing agriculture, although this mission is much broader, but we'll stick to agriculture. Our attention is based on soil health, obviously, as a source of multiple benefits in the food system and broader for our societies. As we see, it will contribute to clearer waters, biodiversity, along with food security, and we have framed this process and the compilation of good practices in this pathway where we are moving towards regenerative agriculture, which means that we will constantly improve the soil health. And based on this idea, based on our need to address climate challenges, water quality challenges in the Baltic Sea, we started this Carbon Action Platform with pilot funding from Sitra, thank you very much, in 2017. And now this has grown into a platform hosting 20 plus projects, multidisciplinary research, several research institutes involved, thousands of stakeholders involved. And now slowly it has formed into this into a platform or network which, as Leila said, fulfills many of the elements and expectations of a living lab. We have been involved in European discussions, networking, and also within the 4 per mil initiative since 2019, and that way also we have followed and maybe possibly also influenced the call and the mission in some way, either as inspiration or something. And this is what we have today on the platform. It's based on top science. We have meteorological science, agronomic sciences, economics, social sciences is a bit weaker, but that's something we need to strengthen, and we are strengthening. We have pilot farmers, as Leila said. We have 100 farmers and 20 intensive farmers as the core of our platform, where the action happens, where the co-creation happens, where the research experimentation happens. And to join these farmers and to enable peer learning among farmers, we have thousands more joined in peer learning clubs, as well as through this e-course on regenerative agriculture. We are training advisors, advisor help training further advisors. We have quite strong company platform where we offer companies to join the platform and develop their sustainability strategies, train their contract farmers, develop more sustainable products. And then, of course, policy and advocacy and communication and international networking are something to really put attention on. So I will skip or move quickly through the next slides and focus on a few aspects more. Thank you to our funders. One of the main objectives on the platform is to support the carbon sequestration in soil and increasing of soil carbon sinks. And for this aim, we need to know how much additional carbon we can store in the soil and for how long. This is the main question that our cooperation led by the Finnish Meteorological Institute aims to answer. And what the aim is to build a carbon sequestration verification model that can serve both public policy as well as company sustainability strategies and also private incentives for farmers to store carbon in the soil. This is connected to top class research in ecological forecasting. There we have an example from the Krzywoszynska farm, where we currently have carbon sequestration forecasting model active, so giving us results in real time, also 2 weeks ahead. But then I should really emphasize the role of the farmers here, because this is something that we have been quite a lot discussing with other European networks within this carbon farming topic, and we've been praised by how well the farmers have been taken on board in this platform, and this is something that really adds value and can both add value to research. So when there's real two-way communication between research in different topics and the farmers, and how they can apply the new research and how they can give feedback from the field to the research, but then to adjust research questions. So farmers are not only research partners, they can accelerate the transition by sharing examples with other farmers. They can advocate these new methods, and they can become more stronger as business partners also with companies. And then I mentioned companies, what they have focused on our platform. So I mentioned also. Then I can come to what is lying ahead on Carbon Action Platform. And actually, this is one of the reasons why we are interested also in the Living Lab call, because while we have a strong platform, while there is a lot going on, it's still a bit in the dark how long we can sustain this platform as in the current format. So right now we have funding to carry on the activities for the next 2 years, but then beyond that, we don't know. We are approaching the end of our 6-year research plan funded by this strategic research project STN Multa, where we have done soil research on 100 farms and with these 220 intensive farms. We still have a final round of soil sampling to do, and actually some more funding is still needed for that in order to complete the soil sampling program. We will increase our attention on biodiversity in the coming years, and there we have really interesting research questions on what is the connection between underground and above ground biodiversity. What is the contribution of biodiversity to then these ecosystem services that we expect to get from more sustainable agricultural production. We are involved in some of the calls in the call that closed in September 22. So awaiting for decisions from those. And there, this concept of living lab is already tested in some ways. It has been quite popular now among the project initiators to try to present carbon action as a living lab, and without really knowing what is expected now in this upcoming call. But we have tested this in different projects, and we'll see now in January how we will succeed. Lastly, I will just invite you all to our symposium, which is organized under the 4 per Mill initiative, the first Northern Europe regional meeting, which Carbon Action and Baltic Action Group and Finland will be responsible for next June. So thank you for now, and yes, I'm available to answer the questions.
So thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. Questions. I'm so pleased to see all this progress. I remember still this meeting from 5 years ago, as I mentioned, that Sitra was at the beginning kind of.
It was in that room, actually.
It was, yeah, you were there with me. Okay, that was, but yeah, I was that time representing farmers, but so it made so much sense, as said, and now we see the result. This is really great. Thank you very much for presenting this all this great job you have done, and thank you for the invitation. So we have just 5 minutes left, so is it time to look the next steps then, Anna?
Yes.
Yes, and if there is no questions now, we will move to the next steps, and so we have these missions, and let's say this is our slide, and then we have also the slides of our mission objectives if needed. But maybe we just stop here because we have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think the objective of today was really to introduce the shadow group, the mirror group. I'm not sure what we're calling ourselves, but Eminence Grey, the enablers of the SOA mission for Finland and hopefully for the Nordics. To tell you a little bit about what the SOA mission wants to achieve and how it already is trying to do that. But really, it is kind of now up to us, everyone who is interested in improving soil health, to get together and achieve this. So the question of what next is a prompt more than it's more of a comment than a question, more of a question than an answer. So really, we would love to hear from people who are joining us virtually. What would be useful for you? What has inspired you today? Where would you like us to take this information? Who do you think the stakeholders are that we should be reaching out to? Who are the networks we should be engaging with? And how we can be activating people to both, apply for funding, and we want to very much support that. We want to support Finland to be very successful in getting the best benefit out of this funding stream, but also beyond that in getting more involved with soil health as a societal objective. So yes, perhaps we can have a few minutes thinking about that. If anyone has been sparked by our presentations today.
Looking if there is some online, some raised hands. No, not yet. Here, well, it was already 2 hours, so it's quite a bit of information now for you all.
Yes, and we are available by email.
Yes.
All that's needed is an active group. Somebody's posting something, but I can't quite see the text. Would you be able to read it out?
Yeah.
You can hear me. Vilma will come and help us. Yeah, yes. You can read it.
Okay, so
A few minutes ago, Jaakko Nippala from the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry said that it would be interesting to advance living labs on forestry and forest sites as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now Mikko Peltola responded that he agrees. All that is needed is an active forest owner group of forest owners interested in better soil management. Soil Mission offers funding for creative living labs and lighthouses.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And actually, that was said also in our meeting.
Yes.
In Vienna, that they really need applications from forestry soils, and they looked off, kind of, yeah, expecting to have application from Finland for forestry soils too.
So perhaps.
Jaakko has his hand raised up. Maybe.
Okay, maybe Jaakko, yeah, please.
Yes.
Floor is yours, Jaakko.
Thank you very much. Greetings from my couch actually here. I'm recovering from the flu as well, so unfortunately couldn't be there. But maybe just to elaborate a little bit on my comment earlier, I think that would be something that we can take as an action point from now on here in Finland during this call to try to support and see how we could maybe organize a group of interested forest owners, find out an organization, research organization, consortium, including other countries as well, in collaboration possibly with Sweden and so forth, to try to find and come up with a way on what could the living lab look like in forestry as well. And maybe as a question and a comment on the Kvidja, and that part was mentioned earlier, if I understood correctly, there are forest lands close by Kvidja as well, if there's been any kind of talks on how that comes as part of the whole process done there. But this is, I feel like when we're talking about forestry management of forest soils, there's still things we need to do to find out a good way on how to advance this kind of collaboration. So maybe let's take this as a kind of a joint thing to go forward with and as an action point from this meeting. Thanks for good presentations as well.
Would you like to add something?
Thank you.
Just to comment that, yes, we are very much interested in joining also forestry more on this platform, and there are already projects and research going on.
Yeah, thank you, Kaija. This is really a very good point to raise and the kind of outcome of this meeting too. And I, as a soil scientist, I also am kind of lacking the information on different forest management practices to soil biodiversity, but also the greenhouse gas emissions and carbon capture, so both. So there is still lack of knowledge, and we should cover that also by this call, I would say so. So, yes. And different management practices for our kind of forests which are producing food, not food, but food. So this is very important question.
One more hand raised.
No, this is just contemplating in my head.
So because now we are already
we're
2 minutes over, but maybe you can conclude.
I was going to say that as a sort of a parting summary, while this is just starting, so this is the first call for the living labs, and there will be further calls in the coming years. So it is really, if you've seen these presentations today, and you feel inspired, interested, but unsure, you would want to build something, there is time. So it's a good time to start is now.
Good. So we are very thankful for this event and all of you who participated and our presenters. And so thank you for all of you and wish you very good November and coming Christmas time. So thank you very much.
Thanks to everyone.